Okay, it's about time I started to document a bit of this. We're trying to make a Papercrete mixer. What we've got here is a air blower, industrial air blower. We got this off the Lismore tip about 2 years ago, and it's just sort of been sitting here. Here's the guts of it. There's the blower and the bearings. All I did was get an angle grinder and cut those two ends off and pulled it through. And what we've got here as a base are these tiles. They're big heavy duty composite tiles. They're made from chipboard and some sort of epoxy resin. They're very stable and they're quite thick, as you can see. Now what I've done is, I'm not mucking around, a bit of a redneck fix here. I've used this electric chainsaw to chop that circle out and to tidy up the front here. And what I'm going to do next is get this diff, marry it to this base, and of course that's going to come up straight through the floor where this hole is, and I've got it roughly centre. I mean, it doesn't really matter. God. Anyway, it's roughly centre. And what I intend to do is use polystyrene. What we want to mix up, of course, is this stuff, paper. We've got heaps of that and we're going to get more. But what I'm going to use for glue, because I've seen a lot of guys online, well, a couple of guys making Papercrete mixers and talking about special glues and so forth. So what I intend to use is this polystyrene dissolved in acetate, which will give me a big gluggy mix, which I can then put around the diff as it comes through this and seal it off, let it set for a couple of days. Anyway, that's the basic components. Now what we want to do with this one is make it a stationary mixer. We don't really want to drive it around. So what I'll be making is a collar that fits this where the wheel normally goes, and I'll make a collar that marries to the dingo, which has got a hydraulic head on it designed for turning an auger. So there's plenty of grunt, and we'll run this one stationary, and I'll make this high enough so that a wheelbarrow can come under and take the load and take it elsewhere. We want to make the Papercrete on site, so we don't want to be running around. Progress thus far, I've made 2 brackets out of heavy gauge angle iron, pre-drilled them, bolted to this, cut a big hole out, probably a bit too big, but that's alright, I can fill it in. I can hide my mistakes with this project. So that's now bolted to the base. I'm going to need some heavy lifting power to pick that up, tip it over, bolt it with the other 4 slots, and that shouldn't go anywhere. I'm going to weld a bar. I think this is cast though, not so sure about welding here. Maybe weld a bar from here down both sides to stabilise it, and with any twisting moment there. And I'm going to use a piece of spring steel for a blade, for a cutter blade. So all that's got to happen is, once it's flipped over, is that's going to be glued on. Okay, what we're looking at here is the base that I've put down with. I found some aluminium strips and I've used polystyrene and mixed it with acetate, and hopefully this will hold. I've got my suspicions it won't, but I can just beef that up with resin and fiberglass if I really have to. I'm thinking I might have to do that, is actually invest in some resin and fiberglass cloth, and once that skip hopper's on, bond it all together. Put a layer down and then a second layer. No dramas, still cheap. So far it's cost us $40 this mixer, and a few rods, they were 11, so let's say $51 so far. Keep you posted. Oh, before I switch off, this bar I welded on here is basically a section of spring steel off a car. I figure that's a good choice of metal because it's high in carbon and it's got a bit of flex to it. It's not going to break. So we'll see how we go. I want to grind these edges sharp so that it helps chop up the paper a bit better. Anyway, that's what that is. Just walked up the hill, so I'm a bit puffy, but here we are. We've jumped ahead a bit here, but really Most of this is pretty straightforward. I made this base. It's the right height for a wheelbarrow to sit under. It's all just made of old bed frames. It's good stuff, high tensile. And then I've added this, which is an idea one of the other guys had online, just using a truck inner tube, and I've sealed it with these tech screws. This thing I found in the shed, and just roll it up. Should stay watertight. And this whole thing's been completely painted. This is still slop in here, starting to harden up, but you can see there, I doubt very much that's going to leak. And I've painted this a couple of times, and that paint in there will obviously go off and form a hard crust in the next couple of days. As you can see, I've taken the brakes off, cut that back so I could get that in there. I can't wait to try it really. Bunged up all the holes in the tank and put this collar on. Had a drill just big enough to get the pin in. Make it big enough for the pin. So there you go, that's the finished product, industrial strength. Anyway, next video we'll crank it up and see how we go, eh? Okay, we're finally underway. As you can see, we've got the dingo attached here. If I can get out of the bloody road. Dingo head, auger head. As you can see, that diff's spinning. Here's what's happening. As you can see, the strap out of the road. It's chopping up big time. Come and have a look. Okay, this is a result of the first ever load of Papercrete to come out of that mixer there. It's a fairly large brick. What I'll do is I'll dry them, let it dry, set for a while. It's settled a bit, about 1 inch, 2 inches, and then just come along and cut it with a handsaw. Pull the sides off, cut it with a handsaw. So that's not bad. That's 1 bag of cement, and we've got about 8-9 foot of brick there, and they're pretty big bricks. I tell you what, if you started building a house with this, it wouldn't take long to get the walls up. Anyway.